Oh my God, I love international rugby. Cricket, get out of the way. Football, get out of the way. What an end to the autumn internationals. I'm going to go into it later on, but we said about the BOKS can win with 13 players, 12 players. Well, apparently they now want to play against 12 players as well, but we're going to get all into that. So welcome to All Things Rugby's review of week 4 of the Quilter Autumn Internationals. My name's Shanair, and I cannot wait to break down these games for you. So let's start off in Cardiff as Wales hosted New Zealand. Now, New Zealand, off the back of some mismatched games, you know, there was a lot of pressure on Scott Robertson. This was their chance to rotate some players, and rotate they did. The likes of Ruben Love coming in and starting 15. We've seen it all year for Super Rugby, and now we're seeing it in a 15 All Black jersey. He looked phenomenal, and although D-Max played 10 this week, we know Bodie's going to come back, we know Richie Mwanga's going to come back, there is definitely a place for Ruben Love in this team, and his try just showed he can spot the mismatch, and when he gets going, the wheels on him was outrageous. Big shout to Holly Davison as well this week. We're going to talk about refereeing and again when we get into Ireland, South Africa, but I think Holly Davison had a really good match. She wasn't scared to make big calls. There was one point when she actually made a mistake. It went up to TMO and she was so happy to come on and go, no, wrong call, let's go with that decision. So fair play to her as well. First lady to referee the All Blacks as well, so massive congratulations to her. As for Wales, real interesting one. They managed to score the most amount of points they have ever done against New Zealand, and obviously Tom Rogers got a hat-trick. He's one of only 4 players to get a hat-trick against the All Blacks, so massive congratulations to him. Dan Edwards looks like he is a good option for Wales now going forward at the 10 jersey. So the likes of Johan Lloyd and Sam Costello, we're going to see what happens. But Dan Edwards had a good kicking game. He had a good run threat as well. So look, there's lots of positives there for Wales. We see obviously Zam on the wing. Since Zam's been back, by the way, you Bristol fans, let me know. I don't think I've seen him pass the ball yet, but he looks great. Look, there was a lot of positives there for Wales. But at the end of the day, they still shipped another 50 points. So yeah, and look, as for next week, they've just lost 15 players back to the URC, and they'll be facing a Springbok team that has untold amount of depth. So yeah, don't know why we're doing this game next week, but we'll see. Up front for the All Blacks, Tamaiti Williams looks like he's really becoming one of the best props in the world. He's an absolute monster around the park. He's great at set piece, and you can see just how physical he is for that try he scored. Caleb Clark was back firing on all cylinders, and we saw just what he can offer around the pitch. His finishes, and although Wales missed so many tackles that, you know, you can't get any momentum from a defensive line if you're doing that. Caleb Clark looks so good. He looks like the player that he was. And if he gets a good run in Super Rugby, then no doubt next year he's going to be cementing that winger jersey for the All Blacks. The other noticeable one that was back for the All Blacks this week was Rico Ioane. Now, he's going to be playing for Leinster come January time, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on in the URC. He obviously didn't get a lot of game time over this autumn internationals, and even towards the back of the Rugby Championship, we saw him fall out of favour. Now, is that because he's moving to Leinster? Is there something happening? But look, either way, the guy's got so many caps and experience in that All Blacks team. He brings so much to it. He leads the haka. We have no doubt that he's going to be in Scott Robertson's plan come 2027. That's obviously the end of the tour for New Zealand, but going into next year, they have the greatest rivalry where they'll be going over to South Africa to play 4 tests, plus obviously all the domestic games as well. We've seen that Scott Robertson's got 17, 18 new debutants this year as well. So look, they are building the depth that they're going to go into Super Rugby, get some great game time, and play the type of rugby that New Zealand want to play as well. So keep your eye next year as we start covering the Super Rugby and see what players come through that All Black system. Obviously, I did our ATR Hot Takes video yesterday on what happened in that Ireland-South Africa match, but we are going to break it down a little bit more. But I'm going to echo what I said yesterday. Matthew Carley had a very good game. Yes, there were some decisions that are going to be questioned. And obviously, if you go on the likes of Twitter this morning, it's an absolute free-for-all and a war zone at the moment. But I think he had a good game. If you listen to people that actually know the game and watch the game, if you take emotion out of it, he had a good game. He had to make them decisions. Yes, the Sasha one probably could have been referred to a yellow. But when you look at the likes of Crowley's one, Crowley's was cynical on the floor. If you look at Prendergast's one, it was a team one. Porter, he got penalised at the scrum 5 times in a row. Of course, he has to give a yellow card. And he actually saved Ireland by not giving another one for the penalty try before half-time. But enough about Ireland. I said about their discipline yesterday. Let's talk about this BOKS team. Let's talk about Rassie. And let's talk about the mastermind he is. Now, when you consider how many players he hasn't got available at the moment, the likes of Oxenche, Bongi, Vincent Koch just retired. He's got Frans Malherbe that's been injured for a whole year. And yet, all of a sudden, the front row he's picked is playing against the starting Lions front row. And what a demolished job they did on Ireland's pack. And it isn't just that front row. Obviously, the front row are so skilled. But the BOKS' ability to work as an actual 8 pack at scrum time and set piece was phenomenal. I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. That was the best scrummaging performance the world has ever seen at any level of the sport. The biggest thing from that, though, we're 40 minutes in, we get a penalty and we get a yellow card when Porter goes off. And Rassie goes, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep my foot on the gas and we're actually going to crank it even more to change the front row before half-time to then get that penalty try. I mean, Ireland must have just been sitting there in the change room going, what on earth do we do? But credit where it's due. Ireland came out in that second half, played the scoreboard really well. And after a couple of penalties, you're sitting there going, man, they've managed this yellow card time pretty well, considering it was like there was always someone in the bin for them. But they managed to get within a couple of scores. And you're thinking, look, whether it was 15 on 15 or not, Ireland aren't a bad side. Yes, they got scrummed off the park, but they are not a bad side. And you can see just how much talent they have. Now, look, Andy Farrell, there's a lot to be said about when he went away for the Lions, and obviously he didn't coach Six Nations now. He hasn't blooded as many players through as they wanted. It was basically another Leinster team, minus, Matt Hansen at the back and Bundyaki. But they're a good side. It's come out that there's a couple more injuries now. Ryan Bird looks like he's got a fracture. But they're going to welcome back Joe McCarthy, who's another monster to bring into that second row. Ulster are getting better. Connacht haven't been where they need to be at the moment, but Munster are undefeated in the URC. So look, there's a lot of positives still within this Irish team, and going back into the URC this week, we're going to see that. I think the one thing that's clear and obvious at the moment, though, is just how far ahead this Springbok team, the coaching setup, the whole squad and the development of the whole of South African rugby is going into the 27 World Cup. Next year, they've obviously got the greatest rivalry tour, which is going to be great for everyone to watch. And when we get those domestic games against kind of the rotated New Zealand side, it's going to be great for everyone to see just how good and how deep this squad goes. But realistically, going into the 27 World Cup, is anyone going to develop the rate that is needed to challenge this Springbok side? Into Saturday evening we go, and Chile went over to Italy to face a team that was, although rotated, still very good on the park. Now, Italy's backline, we've seen just how much talent they've got. But when you get the likes of Ange Capuzzo in space, he can find a gap anywhere. And unfortunately for Chile, he exploited them time and time again. Even with Monty's tries, Monty just had a couple of walk-ins because they did so much work up front. Now, credit to Chile, they fronted up. The scoreboard looks a lot closer than the game actually was, and there was times when they were physical enough to bat Italy back. And look, going into the World Cup as well, they're going to come up against these bigger sides. They're going to have these challenges, but look, they're just far off, and we've seen that amongst the Tier 2 and 3 nations anyway, right? Now, the good thing is that Tier 2 pool, or pool number 3 in the World Cup, 4 out of the 6 are going to be able to get through to the round of 16. So the likes of Chile have got an opportunity to progress to that. But if you're coming up short against Italy, I don't know how you're going to do against the bigger sides. The final game on Saturday was over in France, with Australia finally getting to the end of their tour. Now, look, going in at half-time, 19-all, we're sitting there going, cool, they've got a little bit about them. But we just saw that by the end of that second half, Australia had nothing left to give. Now, again, I did a video last week about why I still think Australia are a good side. Obviously, they're going to have less kids now coming next year for a whole new campaign. They played 16 or 17 test matches in 22 weeks. That is unheard of. And that's off the back of Super Rugby as well. So look, fair play to the Aussies. as for the French, oh my Lord, they can move the ball well. They move the ball probably as good as the All Blacks do. And when you've got the likes of Bielberry just carving up, I mean, the first try he scored was just outrageous. And we know that he can do that against everyone. And then when you look inside him, Deportier looks like he's got that 13 shirt nailed down now going forward. One thing we've been chatting about in the office is Entermac's role to play at the moment. Now, he looks a little bit tired. We obviously know he's had a few injuries recently, or the last couple of seasons at least. But the way France play with Thomas Ramos so heavily involved, not just kicking, but around the park, that second playmaker, kicking options. Does Entermac really need to do anything else? Now, last night they had a full round of top 14 and Jalabert was playing for Bordeaux. He is class, and there is so many other good talent in that top 14. But if you think that Dupont's going to come back for the Six Nations, you've obviously got the Toulouse connection. Are we going to see Entermac really take it to that next level and be one of the world's best fly-halves like he was just a few years ago? Two last games to talk about in the Autumn Nations. Now, I'm probably going to rush through this Scotland one because, again, I've said this all campaign. I don't know why they do the fixture list. I actually got a text from a close friend of mine saying that there was an agreement in place years ago around COVID time, the dreaded C word, that Scotland had to play these tier 2 teams as part of their kind of commercial package as well. But really, what's the point? You started with a drilling of USA and you end it with a nil of Tonga. And Tonga got a red card. Tonga got 3 yellow cards in the rest of the game as well. It's like, it's not even worth it. Now, the likes of Dewey is just going to get try after try. I said this against USA. Ewan Ashman looks like he's a world-class international hooker when he's playing against these teams. But realistically, what did Scotland get out of this? You know, they got some game time together. Going into the Six Nations is a completely different kettle of fish. And based off this autumn, yeah, like I can't imagine anyone, whether it's the Scottish National Union, whether it's Gregor Townsend, or whether it's Scottish fans happy with how this autumn went. So, yeah, lots to work on in Scotland, but let's see how the next few months pan out before the Six Nations. The game of the weekend, with not as many yellow cards as the other games, England at Twickenham against Argentina. Now, at half-time, I'm sitting there going, we're looking good. It was calm, it was composed. Fordy's hitting drop goals, he's slotting things over off the tee, and we're like, hey, we're onto something here. Max Ajomo in midfield is having an absolute blinder, both defensively, with the ball, kicking. He looks so good in that team, and we heard he's been training so well, and obviously a late call-up with Dingwall getting injured, but England look like they managed to fill a gap now that they haven't had for a long time. Obviously, there's still lots to work on in this England side. The likes of Elliot Daly just looks so far off the bat. Now, I know that was his first game back since injuring his arm against Alliance, but just feels like we rushed it for no reason. He wasn't really utilised for his kicking or on that left-hand side. And we have the likes of Adam Radwan, we have Henry Arundel, we have Caden Murley. We have so many other players we could have played. But look, the kicking game is clearly working for England. Feo Boso looks like he's cemented that one side. And knowing that we've got the likes of Roebuck to come back, Tommy Freeman to come back, it looks like England are going to be set on this kicking game. But it was really nice to see them move the ball really well. As I said, Max Ajomo and Henry Slade probably didn't link up how we thought they would. A lot of questions again about Henry Slade. We know that Ollie Lawrence is going to come back into that side. Ajomo and Lawrence obviously play for Bath, so if they get a good run of games, that will probably be the starting centre partnership going into the Six Nations. Questions around Ben Spencer. Very, very good box kicker. We know that, and he was putting the ball on a pence, but just slows the game down so much. And when you've got the likes of Spencer and Ford, it's just a very different sign of attack. Whereas the likes of Alex Mitchell, Finn Smith, Marcus didn't even get on the pitch, you know. So we know that England have built, obviously undefeated autumn, 11 wins in a row. That's fantastic. But that second half, oh my squeaky bum. I was sitting there in the office watching it, messaging the groups going, what is happening? It's quite funny that we said during the Rugby Championship about Australia letting teams get a head start and then trying to come back into the game. I don't know what happened with this Argentina team, but they must have got a right arse kicking at half time, because they came out in that second half with a point to prove. And by the end of the game, it was touch and go. They had chances to win it. England just managed to hold on, and that last try by Slade obviously just cemented it and got England just far enough ahead. And then it all kicked off. Now, obviously, we've seen Tom Curry year after year, from even before the 2019 World Cup. He's an absolute animal when he needs to be on the pitch. But yes, he's had a couple of cards, but he plays a hard game within the laws of the game, right? I also made a comment about Ireland and kind of the old New Zealand team. They try to find these 1% by either going in the side, or like when the ref isn't looking, or running block lines. Man, Tom Curry just plays a very good flanker game, and we want him to play that. Was it late on Malia? Yes. But we see that every single match. You can go and ask any fly half if they get tackled after the kick. The answer is yes. He's unfortunately fallen. Malia's hurt his leg. It looks like an ACL injury. We saw him hobbling after the game. But what happened at the end of the game with everyone kicking off, and apparently Contepone's gone up to him in the tunnel? Man, get over it. You lost. You should have done more in the first half, right? What he come out and said in the press conference after is a load of nonsense. And if he doesn't like it, well, look, now we have all the marketing we need for next year in that Nations Championship when Argentina play England again. Show the fight in the tunnel, get all the cameras, and let them just go at it beforehand. And really, let's see if Argentina can go 80 minutes this time. Some interesting results elsewhere this week, with Japan going over to Georgia, and after the heartbreak of what happened in Cardiff when they lost to Jared Evans in that last minute last week. This week it's their turn. Now, Japan were leading for a good chunk of this game, and Georgia managed to bring it back. Georgia take the lead with just minutes on the clock. They managed to get the ball back from kickoff, and for some reason they kick it away. And not only do they kick it away, they kick the ball directly into touch. Japan's got one last opportunity. They attack, they get a penalty, and they slot it over for Eddie Jones to get his final win on tour. Fair play to Japan. Again, he's rotated so many players through the Pacific Nations Cup into this autumn. Obviously, they probably should have and deserved to win last week against Wales. They've got a good win against Georgia. That's good for Japan going into next year. As for Georgia, it was only a couple of years ago that they were just on the edge of everyone saying, get them in the Six Nations, play the relegation game against Wales, get them in, they keep winning the Rugby Championship. But this year they've gone completely backwards. Now, we've seen the likes of Black Lion now in the Challenge Cup, and they're getting more game time together. But at the national side, very unconvincing performances. They've conceded so many points, whether it was Canada or USA, and now obviously losing to Japan. They have really lost their stock within the likes of World Rugby. Portugal managed to pick up a win against Canada, which is really good for them. Now that Canadian side has obviously developed so much from last year. But again, compared to even where the women's side is in Canada, they've got a lot of work to do. A lot of these players are going to go and play in the MLR if MLR can manage to keep some teams together and actually have a league this year. But look, fair play to Portugal. That's a great win for them. Uruguay went over to Bucharest and got a win themselves. And again, that's great for Southern Hemisphere rugby. Now, them and Chile coming from South America, that league is developing really well. They've actually added another team into it next year. So look, keep an eye on what's happening in South America. And last but not least, Spain hosted Fiji, in which was a very close game, and Spain were leading for so much of it, but Fiji managed to hold on. They just turned the ball from defence to attack so well, better than most teams. But the thing is with this Fiji side, on one side they look incredible, and when they get the ball, you're like, wow, the flair, the offloads, the running power, the set pieces got better. And sometimes they look like a pub team. So yeah, look, I don't know where that leaves Fiji, to be honest. It's great that they're going to be involved in the Nation Championship. They're not playing their games at home, which we would all love to see and would obviously help the Fijian economy massively within the sport. But we saw the Drua get better. They've obviously got another Super Rugby year. So hopefully we'll see Fiji by the end of the Nations Championship be a team to watch. My gosh, I've watched a lot of rugby in the last 4 weeks. I've spoken about a lot of rugby in 4 weeks. But you know what? We're going to keep going. For some reason, we've got another game next week between Wales and South Africa. God knows who's going to be playing for either side because it's outside of the window. Apparently, there's only 30,000 tickets sold. Half of that they've probably given away. So, yeah, look, we'll give a little preview of that later on in the week. But we are back to the Premiership. We are back to the URC next week. Although it's only one round before we go into European games, we're going to be previewing everything that's happening domestically as well. Thank you very much for following us for the last 4 weeks with internationals. Make sure you jump over to allthingsrugby.com to read all of the reviews of this week's and all of the other games over the internationals. Make sure you download the Rugby app to stay up to date with all the highlights as well. If you haven't missed any, make sure you jump on there. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Shanair, and this has been All Things Rugby.